Post-harvest losses have become a detrimentally serious issue within the nation of Zimbabwe and worldwide. We see a lot of harvest losses happening within the horticultural industry, and today we shift our focus to post-harvest losses in tomato. We are here today where we are going to learn more about what could actually be done to curb these actual harvest losses that we are facing. Did you know that in Africa alone, we face 40 to 50% in post-harvest losses annually? This is a very significant amount of losses that translates to millions lost every year to bad handling, to bad harvesting, and also to transportation issues. There are a lot of key factors coming into play that we see arising in the horticultural industry that are resulting in farmers not being able to realize the full value of their actual work. This means that there's a real problem here that we need to address as farmers. Tomatoes are one of the most widely produced crops within the nation of Zimbabwe, but we realize that farmers are putting a lot in terms of inputs, in terms of what they actually put in terms of production, and what they use in terms of expenditure to maintain their crops, only to realize a 40 to 50% significant loss at the stage of harvesting and at the stage of transporting their products to the actual market. We've seen actually a shift in the market prices this season, as we've seen a significant drop in market prices during the winter period and coming out of the winter period. This means that a lot of key players went into tomato production this season, which resulted in a glut. It's not something that most farmers forecasted. It's not something that most farmers were realizing or thought would happen. And as a result, we've seen farmers facing a significant loss in terms of their income throughout the year this year. This means that we've got something to be answerable for farmers. With tomato production on the rise and with people looking for various alternatives within the horticultural industry on what they can actually put in and how they can realize their profits, we need to be answerable to the post-harvest losses that were taking place as a nation and as a country. We are going to be joined by a farmer and an expert that are going to tell us more about how they have managed to curb and to control and reduce their post-harvest losses as a nation. Going into the market, they've also been able to curb and control and reduce the effect of post-harvest losses on their crop, from choice of variety to handling their produce better, to also choosing alternative markets that help their products to be taken up faster. There are various methods that we can look into as farmers to help us to curb and control these post-harvest losses. With tomatoes, we have different varietal choices that we are seeing on the market today. We've got varieties that can be used as dual processing tomatoes and also be taken up by the fresh market. This is an option that you can look into as a farmer. This means that you're looking for a variety that can serve you well within the processing industry and a variety that will also serve well in the open market. Diversifying your markets as a farmer means you help to curb your post-harvest losses because you are leaving your field as fast as possible with your produce. Also, choosing varieties that have a better shelf life and can stay longer in the field before you find an actual market is another option that you can look into as a farmer. Handling of the actual product when harvesting is another thing that farmers see as a post-harvest cause that reduces their actual yield, eventually reaching the market. There are lots of things that we can do as farmers, like we said before. Knowing the right variety, better handling at harvesting, and also knowing which varieties work well for the processing and dual markets. I'm coming to you today with this real issue as a farmer. If you're a horticultural farmer today who is producing tomatoes, this episode is definitely for you. Join us in the next segment where we are going to meet our farmer who has 10 hectares under production of a dual tomato variety that he's supplying the fresh market with, but it can also be used for the processing market. So join us in the next segment as we hear from our farmer. Hello and welcome back to Agric Connect. Today we are here at Juggler Investments Farm where we unpack more information about post-harvest losses, a challenge that most horticultural farmers are facing currently in the nation of Zimbabwe and worldwide. Today we are joined by Elias Billy, who is going to tell us how they have managed to curb and control and manage to handle their post-harvest losses here at Juggler Investments Farm. Hi Elias, how are you today?
Hi Sister Nita, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Today, we want our farmers to learn more about post-harvest losses, Mr. Billy. Toda kuzivawo kuti imimi pano pa Juggler Investments. Madomasi enyu aminawo under production at the moment. How big is your acreage for under production or under harvest at the moment?
Our acreage is it's 10 hectares and we are selling tomato every day.
Every day. We understand that with 10 hectares that is currently under harvest, that requires a lot of hands-on labor, and there are some issues of post-harvest that can take place there. Mungati tsanangurireo kuti, how are you managing to curb the issue of post-harvest losses within your field at the moment?
Every day we take about 1,000 to 1,500 boxes, crates. Saka ichi chiri kuita kuti iri basa riri serinofamba okudzoka kumashure. It's about the market kumbari. Tiri kunosangana varimi vakasiyana-siyana vari kubva kunharaunda dzakasiyana. Saka imbare is the best market. Kana titorima this such big acreage, tenge tichitemba market yekumbari. But like now, it's in a bad situation yekuti iyi market kumbari iri down. Saka zvinogona kumanikidza kuti uregedza kutema domasi umbomirira uchifungidza kuti mei pamwe market ichaita zviri nani, domasi rozopedzisira ratsvuka sematsvukiro arinenge rakaita. Unenge uchiitira kuti mei pamwe wanawo wakakasika kupusha wanikwa nemasmall hectarage unogona kukasika kupedza, then ndikasara ndiri mumarket and the likes. But iyi challenge iriko ndeyekuti vanhu havasi kutenga, hakuna mari. Because even kana ukatotema like 1,000 crates ma 20 kgs, kana ukatoti $2 hakuna munhu ari kuyazotenga. So unonyatsozoona kuti wana.
What is the current market price for tomato at the moment?
$2-3.
$2-3 a crate.
Sure.
So what could have caused this glut in market price? Patira papa normally coming out of winter price inenge yakati nake.
Chatotona so far ndechekuti vanhu, I think vanhu havasi kufamba o havana mari.
So what kind of challenges would you say you face, especially pakuharvesta apa? Pane zvinoitika here mukuharvesta kana kuti ma-challenges anofacwa nema-laborers enyu pavanenge vachiharvesta anokonzeresawo kuti tisawane domasi rakanaka rinozosvika kumarket?
Handling kana wachitora munda, because vamwe vakadzi vanenge vachisungirira paZambia and the likes. Saka nekuzosqueezana kwaanenge achiita nekufamba, mamwe acho anoitawo breakage nemamwe acho anoita masoft. That's why tichikurudzira kuti kana tichitoharvesta ngatishandisei buckets or macrates, because it's hard, so that iri domasi rinongoenda sezvarinenge riri, matemero awarita rinosvika sezvariri, not zvekusungirira paZambia and the likes, anoita soft.
And then in terms of shelf life, mungati madomasi amunoshandisa panapa anogara nguva yakareba sei achiri mumunda asati asvika kumarket?
Ndofarira kuti mabush tomato because rine hard skin and rinogona kutsvuka sezvariri kuita red. Kana muchinge kunyange mukatoribata rinogona kutoita another 3 weeks to a month rakasimba kudaro, rakatsvuka
richiri mumunda. Even
kana mukatotema kumarket unokwanisa kuritengesa, rinokwanisa kushingirira because idomasi rinenge rakasimba. Skin, it's a hard tomato. That's why muchiona risina kana trellising. Yeah. Even pasi rakatogara pasi kudai rinenge rakatosimba.
And then outside of Mbare, mune mamwe ma-markets here ari kure stereke kuti tinoitawo ma-post-harvest losses in terms of period transportation kusvika ku-market site yedu?
Tine mamwe ma-customers anenge achibva nekunana Bulawayo, vanenge vachida this tomato because munzira wanokwira about 3-4 trucks. Saka iri rakanakira kuti rinosvika rakasimba. Wane mabhox avanoisira. Tine vamwe makastoma anobva kuBeira kuMozambique, vanouya futi vanotora this tomato, vanokwirawo 3 to 4 trucks. Saka vanoridira kuti rinosvika ikoko richiri rakanaka plus rinokwanisa kugarawo mumaketi mawo wachiritengesa rinokwanisa kupera risina mabreakages
akanyanya. Aiwa, thank you very much Mr. Billy. I think tanzwa zvakati panyaya yema-post harvest losses anowanikwa mumunda. Thank you very much for sharing those insights with us. As farmers, I'm sure we've taken away a bit on how best we can curb the issue of post harvest losses, which is a real challenge in the horticultural industry.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Billy.
Thank you.
So there you have it, farmers. With the challenges that we are currently facing as farmers in the horticultural industry, post-harvest losses continue to be a big challenge for us. But there indeed are ways in which we can curb. We heard it from the horse's mouth. Mr. Billy says the choice of variety influences just how much you can curb these post-harvest losses. As farmers, we need to go into our production knowing fully well how well we can manage such issues and challenges that we are facing as a nation. Join us in the next segment as we find out more on how well we can curb the issue of post-harvest losses from our expert who is going to join us in the next segment. Hello and welcome back to Agric Connect. On this segment, we are joined by an expert who is going to tell us what the main causes of post-harvest losses are in the nation of Zimbabwe and how best we can curb or control these post-harvest losses as farmers. Today, we are joined by Unico Chikomo, who is going to tell us how he, as an expert, has experience in how, managing post-harvest losses. Hello, Unico. How are you today?
No, I'm good. And yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for the knowledge that you're going to share with our farmers on how best we can manage this challenge that we have of post-harvest losses.
Okay, thank you.
So, Unico, please tell us, what is your idea or what do you think are the main causes of post-harvest losses overall in horticulture in the nation of Zimbabwe?
I think issues around post-harvest loss are mainly centered upon the market. Some farmers don't look at issues upon the market broadly. They'd rather choose to focus on it narrowly. By narrowly, I mean one would say I'm growing tomatoes to be able to sell to Mbare, to be able to sell to some informal markets. But I think we need to look beyond that and also look towards issues like processing, look towards issues like actually exporting the tomatoes itself. That would result in over-reliance on markets such as Mbare, such as some people even go to extent of Blue Wire, because once those markets are flooded, it drives down the price of tomatoes or of any other product, which would then result in the farmer not being able to move volumes the way they are supposed to and result in certain post-harvest losses.
This season, there was a shift in our market dynamics. Normally, stepping out of winter, we would normally have good market prices, but surprisingly enough, we've got very low market prices for tomato this time around. What could possibly have caused that shift in market dynamics?
From experience, I know this area, we usually experience frost. So that would then kind of discourage us from growing tomatoes during the winter. So tomatoes, they usually like warmer temperatures. They don't do too well in winter. But we now have a number of varieties such as this Chibli that can actually do and produce quite a bit during winter. So this year, I think a lot of farmers decided to grow a lot of tomatoes during the winter. So some you did it in greenhouses, some did it open field, like such as we see here. And this has resulted in there being a lot of tomatoes on the market, especially as we moved out of winter into warmer temperatures like August, and now we are going into September. So that has resulted in a lot of tomatoes on the market and lower prices in places like Mbare and everywhere else.
So are we facing the biggest challenges in the market only, or during the actual processes of harvesting, handling and transportation, we face further losses within our harvests? How best can we curb this?
I think losses are there basically just from the field, in that maybe a farmer doesn't harvest as much as they are. And when you're in the horticulture sector, you should always harvest. So any glitches can result in produce actually ripening, and yet the farmer is not in a position to actually deal with the harvest. In terms of horticulture, harvesting is a very intensive process, and you usually have harvest on consecutive days. So a farmer should plan around that and plan the harvest well to avoid losses in the fields. Then we also have harvest in regards to transportation. Some farmers, especially in the rural areas, maybe may not have access to transport. And if you look at the transport, you see there are good tomato farmers, Mrewa, Mtoko, but now when you say they are harvesting all that way and to have to transport to Mbare, that results in losses. There could be breakdowns and whatever, but actually the distance to the market is very far, and that results in a lot of losses, because ideally you wouldn't want to harvest a very ripe tomato today and then it would take 2-3 days for it to be sold. By the time it's sold, any person would want to go and select tomatoes that would not look fresh anymore. So therefore that results in losses. So I think the loss is there from the field, the actually planning of the harvesting, the transporting, and also at the market.
In the issue of transportation, is there a significant difference in transporting to local markets, for example, compared to transporting to export markets?
The thing is, yes, there is a very big difference, because when we look at export markets, such markets are usually very far away, and export markets are very strict on the issue of the cold chain. The cold chain is basically a process where something is harvested from the field and put in a cool storage area. It's processed there. Then afterwards, very specialized refrigerated trucks are then used to carry the processed product to the end market. So it's very strict to such an extent that temperatures are actually measured from when it leaves the cold room till when it arrives to the market. Versus when we are looking at market to the informal sector, people just pack in boxes. They are not even cooled, and straight to the market. So it's very, very different.
And then does the issue of the actual choice of variety used by the farmer eventually trickle into post-harvest losses? Are we saying there are varieties out there that would otherwise lead to post-harvest losses after harvesting?
Yes, the issue of variety is very important. What we see here, we've got this variety is called Chibli. It falls under the kind of jam potatoes, so jam tomatoes. Yeah. So different markets, it goes back to marketing. Different markets want different things. If you look at the informal sector, the people who sell, they want a product that can last the heat. It can last maybe the 2 days reaching the market. So in this area, we also have vendors that come all the way from Mozambique usually. And when they arrive to the field, they'll say they want the jam tomato, because they say that this type of tomato lasts the heat of going to the market and also looks very appealing when it's on the shelf. So the jam tomatoes, they last more and look good. The freshness endures a longer period than other tomatoes. So yes, the issue of variety impacts for post-harvest losses, because certain varieties like this Chibli would stay longer on a shelf than any other variety. And also if you look, there's no trellising. Trellising impacts on a lot of diseases. So this variety of Chibli has actually worked better for the farmer, in that they haven't had to look for further costs in regards to the trellising, in terms of good agronomic practices, disease and pest control.
What would you say to our horticultural farmers out there in terms of advice as a going away message in terms of post-harvest losses?
I would want to advise fellow horticultural farmers to really consider the market before you grow something. And also, like I've said from the beginning, look at the market in a broader sense. In that, don't narrow down your market to just saying that I'm going to focus on Mbare, because what if Mbare is flooded at that time? But go outside the box. I know Cairns used to have processing plants that would deal with tomatoes. So I would want a farmer to focus on basically looking at the informal market, but also have a fallback plan and looking for people who are able to process markets, and also engaging with the market to see what the market really needs. That would result in cutting out a lot of post-harvest markets and over-reliance on markets like Mbare. Let's also look through the export market and see which markets are really there to take up products as tomatoes. Horticultural produce is something where you really need to plan carefully, because once a product ripens, it goes bad. So we would want as much as possible to advise the farmer to run away from post-harvest losses.
Thank you very much. I think I've learned a lot in terms of your knowledge on post-harvest losses and how best as farmers we can curb these losses. There actually are many ways that we can step into the horticultural industry and curb these losses, seeing as we have over 40 to 50% losses in terms of post-harvest losses. That's quite a significant amount that we are losing, and that's money that's trickling out of the economy when we can actually control it as farmers. So thank you very much, Unico, for what you shared with us and the insights that were very strong on post-harvest losses. I think as farmers we have some key takeaways that will help us to curb the amount of post-harvest loss we're facing as a nation. Thank you very much for having us today.
Thanks to you.
All right, thanks. So there you have it, farmers. That was our expert Unico Chikomo on post-harvest losses. That was a very significant amount of information that he shared with us. It's possible as farmers to curb these losses, and it's possible to lessen the amount of losses we are facing as a challenge, with about 40 to 50% in terms of post-harvest losses that we are facing as a nation. We can actually control these numbers and lessen them through some of the means that we've heard from the expert today. So it's up to us as horticultural farmers to lessen these losses and see the rise in terms of profit that we are realizing as a nation. So I'm putting it out to you there, horticultural farmers, today. Let's take this seriously. Let's take it up as horticultural farmers and curb these post-harvest losses that we are facing as a nation. This is me, your favorite host, Annette Mtetwa. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again in the next episode.